All right, guys, so yesterday I reacted to a bunch of the out-of-the-theater reactions for Superman, but now we have the full-on reviews. Now people are fully free to yap without any time restraints. I'm dying. But yeah, I chose Jeremy Jahns and Dan Murrell to react to. I'm only going to react to 2 reviews since they're longer. And the reason why I chose these esteemed critics is because they were the first 2 that I saw. So, yeah, let's see what they have to say.
Superman's back to bring us that theatrical experience. Speaking of theatrical experience, I want to thank the sponsor of this video. This video is brought to you by Metro Cinema, a new cinema concept from the founder and creator of Alamo Drafthouse Cinema. Located in the heart of Chelsea, Manhattan, they built a 20-plex cinema with a unique experience. Works like this: you show up to the cinema with you and your friends, hit up the cocktail lounge, get yourself a nice drink, hang out, relax. You go to the room, in which the rooms range between 4 and 12 seats.
This
the
seems
big
a little
one having
extra.
20 seats. You and your friends in this personalized dining experience, enjoying a multi-course meal, some of which are tailored to the actual movie you're about to watch. Like
this is going to cost you a literal arm and a leg.
Then the curtain raises, the projector comes on, and you're watching your movie. You rent out the whole...
when you look at how expensive regular concessions are, imagine how expensive this is. I don't even want to think about it, quite frankly.
room, the whole auditorium, with just you and your friends. No one there to disturb you. No one's cell phone coming on. No one else talking in the movie. And I love this concept. This is emphasizing the experience part of the theatrical experience. I dig that. So click the link below, go to metrocinema.com. Grand opening will be announced soon, and right now you can already purchase tickets for shows from September through January. Enter the future of the cinematic experience. And now Superman.
I was going to call out Jeremy Jahns for taking a sponsor from like a movie related thing, but I guess if it's a movie theater related thing, it's fine because he reviews movies. He doesn't review movie theaters. So, Jeremy Jahns, your integrity is not in question anymore.
Returns. Again.
I see what he did there. There was a movie called Superman Returns.
Written and directed by James Gunn, stars Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, the leader of the Justice Gang in the DC universe. A kid. Kind of. Now, the real star is the breakout performance of the little crusty white CGI dog named Krypto, as well as David Corenswet as Superman, in a movie kicking off his character in this universe, also kicking off a new DC universe. Now, this is gonna be...
Actually, technically, Creature Commandos kicked off the DC universe. You are incorrect, sir.
Be a spoiler-free review. I'll probably do a spoiler video later on. Friday-ish. But for now, spoiler-free, rest easy. And it's a Superman movie, so let's talk about David Corenswet as Superman. I thought he was great as Superman. For me, the Superman of Superman, Christopher Reeve always has been, always will be. And I don't think they should have actually...
Never watched that movie, so as far as I'm concerned, the best movie Superman is Henry Cavill, because he's really the only one that I've watched. I have seen Superman Returns, but it was when I was really little. I was itty-bitty, and I don't really remember it. So, needless to say, David Corenswet doesn't exactly have a super high bar to clear for me. If we're just talking live action, I mean, Tyler Hoechlin is easily my favorite Superman.
Shown the clips they showed where Superman's yelling at his girlfriend, yelling at Lex Luthor. Not that Superman's not allowed to be pissed. I bring them up because in context, in the movie, seeing it play out, I understood more than just these out of context clips. You do understand his frustration.
I never understood people being like, Superman's not allowed to yell. He's raising his voice. How dare he raise his voice? Ah! I never understood those complaints. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, has like the public image of Superman been ruined to such a degree that people don't think that he's allowed to have emotions? I never understood that.
You know, he's like...
To be fair, I still have yet to see that Lex Luthor scene that people were talking about. I've only seen the trailer where this interview scene is playing.
I don't see red tape. I don't see the politics here. I just want to stop people from dying, and a war was going to break out between totally not Israel and totally not Palestine. No. So yeah, they should probably choose their clips more wisely. That's all I'm saying. Also, what I'm saying is Corenswet was great. He's definitely...
Here's the thing. On the one hand, he's not wrong. But on the other hand, it's like, guy, like, people are just so stupid. Now, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm actually planning on doing a video on this separately where I think I'm going to react to Ben Shapiro talking about this. Like, I still have to see that Variety article where James Gunn talks about how his movie is political and how Superman is an immigrant. So I don't have a ton of the context yet, but I'm already seeing people being upset that it seems like at least part of this movie is going to deal with Superman being an immigrant, and that's going to be a theme in the movie. And it's like yes, should they choose to be as non-controversial as possible? Sure, from a financial perspective, yeah. But like at a certain point, like when do we look at modern movie audiences and just call them out for being completely retarded and politically brain rotted? Like I already said my piece on the Superman yelling part, but like Superman is a literal. It's not a metaphor. This isn't an allegory. What even is the difference between metaphor and an allegory? I don't know. But Superman is a literal illegal alien. In what, like, how do you not watch Superman and just like inherently know it's like, oh yeah, this is clearly like a play on the immigrant experience. And it's like for people acting like, and again, I don't even know what's in the movie, so I don't know how extreme it gets. But for people being like, oh my God, modern Hollywood, oh, woke, oh, they're rejecting their woke politics, blah, 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 blah. I watched Smallville earlier this year. I actually still have to finish it, but I guess I've been watching Smallville this year. There is an episode, I'm not making this up, there is an episode where Superman harbors an illegal immigrant. His mom, Martha, she's about to call ICE on the kid. She's about to call the authorities on this little, like Mexican illegal immigrant kid. And Clark talks her down. And he's like, Mom, I'm an illegal immigrant. It's like, Clark is like, he's just here living his life. Like, why are you going to turn him in to get him deported? So it's like but it's like, these themes are so obvious. And again, I might be, if I look into it, maybe I'll understand people's perspectives. But just on its face, at what point are we not going to start calling out audiences for being just completely fucking retarded? You know, it reminds me of, by the way, I know this is not what this video is supposed to be about, but you know what? I'm yapping, I'm going, I don't care. It reminds me of when Anthony Mackie said that, Captain America doesn't represent America. And it's like, people were like, oh my God, he's saying that because of Trump. He's saying that because he's making it political. When it's like, have you guys not watched any of the Captain America movies? Like, when does Captain America like really even become Captain America? Oh, it was not when he was a fucking political arm of the United States and he was doing like American propaganda or whatever, military propaganda. That was explicitly shown to be a bad thing. It was when he defied America. And his lieutenant told him that he can't go out and save those soldiers. But he defied America. He defied his country. Because he wanted to do the right thing. Because Captain America doesn't represent America. Captain America represents a certain set of values that we as Americans should hope to aspire to. So it's like I understand what Jeremy is saying. And at the end of the day, you gotta when you're the studio head and you're the marketing department, you gotta deal with what you got. But I think as commentators, we should really start emphasizing how a lot of the loud people online are just completely retarded and politically brain rotted. Regardless, I'm just gonna move on. I'll yell about this in another video.
A more relatable Superman, sometimes to a fault, because I don't feel like I should be like, yeah, I feel like Superman right now, because, I mean, if someone took my dogs, I'd flip their desk over too. And I'd grab Lex Luthor and be like, start talking while you can, Luthor. Air's gonna start getting pretty thin pretty fast. Him being this more relatable Superman rather than maybe a father figure of sorts. I thought David Corenswet did really well in the essence of him feeling like Superman didn't feel as lost as I was afraid it was going to. Rachel,
again, I'm like totally fine with this. It's like, again, and I'm only relating it to my admittedly limited experience of Superman. When it comes to like Smallville and my adventures with Superman. And it's like, no, like it's okay. Like Superman can get angry. He can get animated. It's fine. He doesn't have to be this boring, stoic, whatever guy who's super composed in every situation. You know what I mean? I'm totally fine with him getting with Lex Luthor pushing the exact right buttons that gets him sort of close to that edge. I'm actually totally okay with that. I mean, as long as he doesn't go into fucking Homelander territory, but like for him to get angry and him to start throwing stuff, like that's totally fine to me.
Brosnahan,
But also, I haven't seen the movie, just to be clear.
I also felt was really good as Lois Lane. No surprise there. It's like when her casting was announced, it was like, makes sense. I think she's going to be really good. They illustrate out the gate. She's the kind of reporter who doesn't trust, doesn't spin, and digs to find the actual truth rather than just what's being said. That's right, this comic book movie about metahumans and an alien baby who came to Earth from his home planet of Krypton, in which his home planet blew up. He was raised in Kansas, grew up to be Superman. The most unbelievable thing about that is that a reporter with that level of integrity works for mainstream media. Lex Luthor in this movie kind of disappointed me.
Can we just be real also? I'm sorry, he's like triggering me. Can we like stop acting like alternative media is any better than mainstream media? Can we like stop pretending? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyways, I need to stop. He's pushing my buttons. I am Clark Kent. You're Lex
Not
Luthor.
because of Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult is doing his best. A lot of actors in this movie, is picking up the slack where the script is failing. When he's being an absolute bastard, he's fun to watch. But he too falls victim to the monster, that out-of-place James Gunn humor. It's kind of weird that although Lex Luthor is doing the puppet...
This is like one of the... well, I don't remember if I... Yeah, I think this is the first time that I've seen somebody say that the humor is out of place. Okay.
Master Thing, the twirly mustache bad guy in his command center. What I think of is the kaiju and some of the other baddies Superman has to fight. It feels like there's a case of identity crisis when it comes to Lex Luthor's motivation in this movie. You can either have the audience understand that through the character's actions, or you can have the character just monologue about it. The movie does the latter, before undercutting the emotional tone with that James Gunn humor. That James Gunn humor, the out-of-place James Gunn humor, not helping anything here. There are moments where you're like, oh yeah,
SpaghettiOs.
Or, you know, a joke, sure. Why though?
I mean, I'd wonder how far does he think that James Gunn out-of-place James Gunn humor goes, because I just don't agree that James Gunn humor is out of place in... Now that I think about it, do I think that his humor undercuts emotion in any of his movies? I don't think so. I don't think it undercuts any of the emotion in the Guardians movies. As far as like the Suicide Squad, I mean, I just was never all that drawn into those characters, so but even then, like I don't think that humor undercut any of the emotions with like King Shark looking out the window or I don't know, like Ratcatcher viewing Idris Elba as her dad or whatever, whatever the fuck was going on in that movie. I don't think the humor undercut the emotion in Peacemaker at all, from what I remember. Creature Commandos also didn't hit super well for me, emotion-wise, but I don't even think that that's necessarily because of the humor. But even then, like humor didn't undercut Weasel or anything. I don't know. I would be curious to know what his examples of humor undercutting emotion, because when I really think about it, I don't really agree that James Gunn has that problem.
James Gunn, that afraid of letting the emotional moment settle, simmer, grip. Because so often in this movie, there's a moment that could genuinely be a great emotional moment. It's like James Gunn's like, no, we can't have it. People need to laugh at every scene. Doesn't matter if it doesn't fit or feels out of place. You know what? There is a great emotional moment in here where he let it happen. That's nice. I mean, glad to have an exception to the rule. The Justice Gang in this Superman movie, absolutely James Gunn's comfort zone. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, he absolutely sells it. And the James Gunn humor can happen there. It's a mix between the actor and the character in which you can funnel humor like that through him, and it doesn't feel out of context. But not everyone in a movie, especially a Superman movie, is supposed to be the comic relief character. Comic relief, humor, and all.
So, I mean, listen, I have not seen other people have this problem, but fair enough. We'll see. We'll see how I feel about it.
All has its place, but don't compromise the world for it. I mean, well, the world of the movie, that is. And oddly, it struck me, the plot points and beats in this movie, you've seen before in other Superman stories. I'm not talking pulled from the comic books. You've seen them on screen. One's from Smallville. I was like, that's Smallville. Just like the Superman-ish moments that I liked, contrasted by the humor that completely...
I mean, isn't that fine, though? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think, like, yeah, like, Man of Steel was just Zod again, but is it executed differently? Does it feel different? Is James Gunn saying other things with it? Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, yeah, a lot of comic book movies are going to be the same. A lot of, you know, reboots of the same fucking comic book characters are going to have similar story beats. I'd be curious to know, like, exactly what he's talking about, of course.
Wiped, if not destroyed, the emotional resonance of the scene. In terms of the visuals, some of the CGI looked clean, yes, but it worked for the movie, for the overall vibe of the film. Other times it was doing these sweeping panning shots among these action sequences. Screen almost looked jittery to the point where it's like, yeah, that feels fake. Lex Luthor walking by robots getting destroyed right by his head, debris flying right by him. He doesn't even...
Yeah, that's it. That seems like a stylistic choice, right? Like, kind of like the teeth hitting the lens. I don't know that I love that, to be honest with you. It is a little immersion breaking, but I think it's a stylistic choice.
Flinch? That's not badass, that's stupid. And you can't help the limbic response but flinch in some way, shape, or form. The point of me bringing it up now when I'm talking about CGI is it just doesn't feel real. It feels CGI. It feels green screen. On the other hand, though, there were shots in here you look at and you're like, that feels like Superman. That's amazing. It looks like it's out of a comic book cell. And I was bothered by the lack of Clark Kent. Granted, where Superman is in his life, no real need. Regardless of where a lot of superhero films have gone, in which a lot of superheroes don't have that secret identity element anymore. It's a thing that some have, but not as many. But I've always enjoyed the contrast between the superhero and the alter ego. And Superman's... Well, if you've watched Kill Bill, you know why that's just particularly interesting. Kill Bill Volume 2, that is.
Yeah, I mean, that was also a complaint that people had with the Batman. Personally, I didn't have that complaint with the Batman because, like, with in the story that Matt Reeves wanted to tell, it was about Bruce learning about what Batman's place in Gotham needed to be. And the movie was just about Batman. He wasn't telling a story about Bruce Wayne. So I would be curious to know if for the story that this Superman movie is telling, which from everything that I've gathered, it seems to be a movie about Superman's place in the world. Yeah, like if there isn't a need for Clark, which to be fair, he literally said this earlier. I don't know that I will have that complaint. I probably won't.
It's all one movie, so whatever. But him as Clark Kent, he doesn't really hide it. He doesn't try to not act like Superman. He's other than the haircut that looks like he's about to do prank videos at Home Depot for
I mean, yeah, that's interesting because based on what I saw in the trailers, I mean, it seemed like he was acting like a goofy or a doofy Clark Kent. Like he's like tripping over himself. He's like, oh, I'm dropping my satchel. Oh, pardon me, sir. I mean, it sounds like, or it looks like he's acting clumsy. So, I don't know. We'll see what I think of it when I watch the movie.
At Home Depot for TikTok. And the glasses, he's Superman with broccoli hair and glasses. He's not really trying to hide it. You can tell James Gunn was like, Clark Kent's not really a big part of this movie. Just be Superman with glasses. There's also tech in this movie I feel like is MacGuffin tech. It's the super advanced tech. Maybe it's because metas have been around for as long as they've been around in this universe. But the point is, there's this ridiculously advanced tech in this world, and we're just kind of supposed to buy it. But the tech clearly only exists so the last act can have a problem that Superman has to deal with. Another thing Superman has to deal with, another thing.
I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, I like the idea of this. Like, one of the things that I love about the movies or about the trailers was how it genuinely felt like another world. It felt like a sci-fi fantasy setting. Like, at no point was I watching the trailers and going, oh yeah, we're on Earth. You know, it's not like when you watch Spider-Man and it's like, we're in New York City. I like that this feels like a fantastical setting. And I think that having just super advanced tech and that just is what this world is. I like that, personally.
Cluttering up this movie. This is absolutely a Superman movie for a whole new generation. Superman taking on his greatest threat ever. Social media. Look, in the end, there's nothing hidden here. There are no surprises. I'm not just talking about the fact that this movie's shockingly predictable. I'm saying whatever your mindset is, if you have excitement or fear, the answer is yes. If you're like, oh man, James Gunn doing Superman, I'm a little concerned by that. I feel like there's going to be conflicting tone. Yes. Or if you're like, James Gunn doing Superman, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, I want to see him bring that energy to Superman. Yes. Like, either way, you already know if you're going to like this or not. There's some enjoyment in this movie for sure, but a lot of the support characters just feel one-dimensional as hell. Guy Gardner was great. Mr. Terrific, he was cool. I just wish I knew more about him. Hawk Girl, what exactly is it you do here? And that's the Justice Gang. And that out-of-place James Gunn humor just killed a lot more than...
You know what's so... and by the way, I don't know if it sounds like I'm coming at Jeremy Jahns here. I'm not, like, trying to. I'm just... like, his opinion is fine. But it is interesting to hear that about the Justice Gang when I'm like, are they in the movie a lot? Like, are they supposed to be super developed characters? Because it's always an interesting thing with comic book movies where people will hear that there are a ton of characters in the movie and they're like, it's gonna be overstuffed, there are too many characters, but it's like, okay, well, a ton of movies have many characters and you're never going to walk into a movie thinking it's overstuffed just because there are a lot of characters in it, because a lot of the side characters are just going to be there to support the narrative and support the main character, and they're not necessarily going to have their own fleshed out storyline. I feel like the only reason we are even worried about that when it comes to comic book movies is because you already recognize those characters. So if you're saying like they didn't, Hawk Girl didn't have a super developed storyline, well, is she a super prominent character? Or is she just a side character that's not meant to have a super developed storyline? I don't know. But it's always interesting with comic book movies that because we just happen to recognize a lot of the side characters, it feels like we just forget how movies work.
Added to this movie. And it'd probably be a better time. If you're drunk.
Yeah.
Damn, what a bummer. All right, so Superman, have you seen it?
He gave
What
it
did you
the
think
not great rating. Okay. So yeah, this was not a super high rating from Jeremy Jahns. All right, fair enough. I think this is the first negative, not even negative, but not like glowing praise that I've seen thus far from things I've reacted to. But let's see what Dan Murrell has to say.
Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of Superman, which is one of the summer's most hotly anticipated and strangely already most debated movies. Now before I get started, I just want to say that as with all of my other reviews, I will not be giving specific spoilers about the plot of this movie.
Thank you.
But there will be references to moments that have already been included in the marketing materials.
That's
and
fair.
General non-specific discussion about the story. So if that's more than you want to know, then you may want to wait and watch this review later. But again, I will not be talking about anything specific that hasn't already been revealed. Superman is, of course, the high-stakes kickoff of James Gunn's DC universe, And it's hard to remember the last time that a movie had so much riding on it, from the future of multiple superhero franchises to the well-being of an entire studio, all as small groups of diehard Gunn fans and diehard Snyder fans fight a war that's already been raging for years, despite the reality that these two guys seemingly don't really have any beef with each other. But underneath all of that is the fact that this is also just a movie, one movie, which needs to succeed or fail on its own terms. And listen, James Gunn is obviously and openly a fan of Superman the character, and he brings that love to the screen. There's no fake enthusiasm here. He obviously has a very solid idea of who this version of Superman should be and what this version of the
Is it just me, or is he leading up to a negative review? I don't know. I'm getting those vibes. But we'll see. We'll see.
DC universe looks like and will be, but that isn't always translated to the screen. David Cornsweet takes over the role of the Man of Steel, and the good news is that he's very well suited to the part. We pick up the story a few years after Superman has revealed himself to the world, but he's still a superhero that's learning, and the movie depicts a critical turning point in both his relationship with humanity and his rivalry with Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, who has been searching for years to find a way to defeat what he sees as a hostile alien invader. Superman is also trying to manage his relationship with Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane, and the two have to navigate their lives with Superman as both Lois's boyfriend and the world's most important news story. Now, you may have noticed that I'm referencing a lot of pivotal moments in Superman's history in the past tense, and that's because Gunn has said that he's not concerned with establishing or re-establishing much of the Superman mythology. This movie feels much more like an introduction to Gunn's DC universe than a true Superman story.
Ooh, so he's saying that the other characters are overbearing. Okay, interesting.
In addition to the usual Superman cast of characters, we're also introduced to the Justice Gang, consisting of Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, Isabella Merced's Hawk Girl, and Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific, as well as Anthony Kerrigan as the shape-shifting Metamorpho, and of course, Krypto, Superman's canine companion, who has become a centerpiece of the movie's marketing campaign. This is not a Superman origin story, or even really a pure Superman story. This is a lot more like Volume 2 of a DC annual featuring characters who are already established in Volume 1. And if you're looking for that volume, well, it's on back order. Now, there are two groups of people to whom I don't think any praise or negative criticism of this movie is going to make much of a difference. DC fans who just want to see these characters on screen and don't care as much about the story behind the movie, and the people that have already decided that they hate this movie. There's enough to love and enough to criticize in the film that I think that anybody can walk away with what they want to walk away with. James Gunn also seems well aware of this, especially because he has a scene where social media hate about Superman is being generated by a literal army of angry monkeys behind a keyboard. He's leaning heavily.
What? Wait, what the fuck? I mean, I kind of consider that a spoiler. I didn't know that. What? That sounds ridiculous.
Into winning over people who are already fans of Superman and a lot of the deeper DC mythology, and I think that many of them are going to love this film. But he also seems to have wholly abandoned the people in the middle, and I count myself among that group, who might be fans of Superman and some of his previous depictions in film and television and in comics, but are looking for a reason to love this Superman. Zack Snyder's Superman films, particularly Batman v Superman, were criticized for speedrunning Superman's development, skipping major parts of the story that focus on Superman in order to get to the broader universe.
I always thought that mindset was dumb. Like, there's nothing wrong with making a Batman and Superman movie after Man of Steel. That could have absolutely worked. The movie just had to have been better. It's always just like, this is actually a really interesting thought exercise with these two reviews, where it's like, when we're talking about movies that are about characters that we recognize with histories that we already know, and that have been explored in past iterations. We bring that baggage into this new movie. But like, if you walk into any movie, the characters that you're following have their own histories that we've never seen before. And we don't go, well, we needed an origin story for this original character. Well, it's like, no, you don't. Like, movies pick up with characters in the middle of their lives. Now, if you feel like the character is underdeveloped and whatnot, that's just because the movie is bad. It's not because, like, Batman v Superman, if you don't like it, is just a bad movie. It's not because they needed to do a Batman solo movie and they needed to do a Wonder Woman solo movie in order to build up to Batman v Superman. Like, no. It's just because it was a bad movie. So I don't know. I never connect with this type of criticism.
And I think that James Gunn makes a lot of the same decisions here. He's openly said that he's not interested in retreading familiar ground, and I'm not saying that I need to see yet another version of a baby Kal-El being put into a rocket and blasted to Earth, but this Superman feels like it takes place in a world where audience love for and knowledge of these versions of the characters is already a given. So when you ask questions like, why do Superman and Lois Lane love each other? Well, it doesn't matter because they're already together. How did Superman become Lex Luthor's mortal enemy? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just throw in a couple of lines here and there to explain it. Who exactly are Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific? Again, it doesn't matter because they're already there. I get where James Gunn is coming from to an extent. A lot of these things have been done in other movies or explained over decades of comic book.
Well, just to be clear, like, you should not ever be expected to know anything about a comic book in order to understand a comic book movie, because the vast majority of people don't read comic books. And so, I don't know, I feel like if Dan Murrell feels like the characters are underbaked and underdeveloped, and you don't feel like you truly understand them, it's because this is just a bad movie. It's not because James Gunn should have made a movie taking place chronologically earlier in the timeline or whatever. It's just because he failed to make a good movie. At least that's the way that I would look at it.
Storytelling. But I do think that there is a base level of things that we as an audience have to be shown independent of those other media in order to fully embrace this version of Superman. And on that account, I think James Gunn falls short. Superman is a movie that's made for existing fans without a whole lot of thought given to winning over new fans. I mean, within 15 minutes, Superman and Lois Lane are having an extensive debate about the ethics of Superman's role in geopolitics, which is a plot point that's been extensively covered in previous films. And I found myself wondering how that's going to land for people who are still finding their footing in this version of the DC universe, or even for kids who are seeing their first Superman movie. How effective is seeing Superman at the bottom if we've never seen him at the top? David Cornsweet, as I said before.
Well, I think that I've heard James Gunn talk about it, and he didn't want his Superman to feel invincible. He wanted him to feel vincible. So I don't think he ever wanted people to see Superman on the top necessarily. Like, I think that was just his extensive, that was his initiative going in. But yeah, that's actually a really good point though. Like, I am going to be curious to see what, like, just hearing what I'm hearing here, what do people who don't know anything or don't care about Superman, how are they going to feel about the movie? Because, like, my sister, for example, she doesn't give a shit about Superman. I think she watched like 5 minutes of Man of Steel and she got bored and like walked out of the room. I feel like, and this is what I feel maybe is going to happen, people who don't care about Superman, who don't know anything about Superman, my guess is that they're going to watch them with an argument and they're just going to treat it like a normal movie where two characters, again, like this happens in literally every movie, where you jump into the world, you're jumping into a character's life, and you're not necessarily having every aspect of their life spoon-fed to you. Which, to be fair, he's not saying that he needs that, but like that's an exaggeration on my part. But I feel like maybe it'll end up being the case that normal people won't feel like they're missing out on anything. That's what I suspect. But we'll see. And by the way, I'm basing this off of the fact that most of the... Like, by the way, I had no idea that the 2 reviews that I was going to be watching in this video were going to be skewing negative. But I'm just basing off of the fact that most of what I've seen about the movie is positive. And spoiler alert, the Rotten Tomatoes score, which we'll look at after this, is positive as well.
I think was a good choice for the role. And like Henry Cavill before him, I think he does a better job at being Superman than the movie does of writing Superman. For all of the complaints about Cavill's Superman being too weighed down and anguished, I think a lot of the same things could be said about Cornsweat's. But he does a good job of establishing a return to the good golly Superman that Richard Donner and Christopher Reeve brought to the screen nearly 50 years ago. Gunn makes sure...
Yeah, I just think that Henry Cavill is a boring actor. I don't think I've ever... Well, I guess with the exception of that Mission Impossible movie, I liked him in that, but I don't get the hype. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even think it's just Superman. I just feel like he's just kind of a boring actor. Like, I tried watching The Witcher. I couldn't even finish the first episode. I was so bored. I don't understand the hype behind Henry Cavill. I don't even know if I fully blame Snyder for that, to be honest with you.
Or to punctuate the movie with great moments of iconography and positivity, possibly to help head off the too dark criticisms about Snyder's interpretation. And this Superman is concerned with saving people and other creatures to such a degree that it often feels like a direct response to the complaints about the DC EU version. I also liked Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, who captures a lot of the brashness that led Margot Kidder to success in this role. She's a convincing ace reporter who will press even Superman on the facts if it means getting a good story, and I think that she has good chemistry with David Cornsweet, but there's so much...
Well, that's good. Again, I don't want to turn this into a Snyder hate session, because I like Man of Steel, just to be clear. But yeah, Jesus Christ, Amy Adams and Henry Cavill there was nothing going on there.
Other stuff that the movie's concerned with that I don't think she gets as much time to shine as she should. I think past the first act, Lois isn't really very consequential to the movie at all. Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific is also a standout as the member of the Justice Gang with the biggest part to play. If this team had been given its own movie, I have no doubt that he would be the breakout character, and he delivers a lot of the movie's humor, which is another James Gunn superhero movie trademark. I was a little less sold on Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor. He makes some very specific choices as an actor, and at times he's deliciously evil and sardonic, but I think he's also maybe the biggest example of my problems with the movie. I understand that he's Lex Luthor, but I don't know him. His character isn't really given enough time to develop, and in that vacuum, I think a lot of what Holt is doing feels like overacting. I feel like I'm seeing him play a version of the character that I should already know and love, but that I don't. Characters like Beck Bennett's Steve Lombard or Skylar Gisando's Jimmy Olsen or Lex Luthor, who have some good moments in the film and would have had much more time to shine in a story that was more focused, are pushed to the margins in favor of more.
Yeah, see, again, this is just one of those types of criticisms where I'm like, but are they pushed off to the side, whereas their inclusion would have helped the story that this movie is telling? Like, if this movie wasn't called Superman, but it was called Super Big Tough Guy, and these were all original characters that we'd never heard of before, would you be complaining that his character wasn't included as much? It's just a thought exercise. Again, I haven't even seen the movie, but it's just a question that I'm asking.
Or more new characters, more creatures and environments, more reveals and twists. But more isn't always better. For example, there's one massive change to the Superman canon that I think could have been the premise of its own movie. It's the kind of thing that I think is going to completely polarize people, but it opens up some interesting possibility.
I'm not gonna give a shit probably because I don't care about Superman canon.
Some really interesting possibilities. I'd have been much more interested if the movie had taken the time to develop that story further at the expense of one less character or one less set piece. James Gunn has an encyclopedic knowledge of DC history, which is great for the role that he's in. But he's only playing to the crowd that already shares that knowledge. This is going to be treated warmly by those that he's super serving, but I think that it's also going to alienate some others. It left me out in the cold a few times. And I think that this also means that a lot of people are going to say that this movie was made for true fans of DC, and it's likely that I won't be counted among that group, and I'll be told that this movie just isn't made for me. But the way to keep a fan base
Yeah, I mean that's always a dumb response. It's like if somebody just thinks a movie's bad, they think it's bad. Like if Dan Murrell thinks that it's underbaked, it's not because he's not a real fan. It's because the movie should always stand on its own, of course.
Is to keep growing it, not just super serving the ones that you already have. I don't think James Gunn is coming from an exclusionary place, but I think that he is a little short-sighted in his vision of how to reintroduce Superman and set up this overall universe. I understand that he's trying to sell a lot in this one movie, but it almost feels like a fire sale. Everything must show, instead of trying to sell us on Superman and letting things grow from there. I legitimately don't know where most people are going to fall on this movie. I might be vastly in the minority here. As I said, there are a lot of things to like. But for me, Superman just didn't work. I'm a fan of the character. I love the Christopher Reeve version. I read the comics growing up. You don't have to convince me that Superman is great, but you do have to show me why in 2025 I should be invested in this version. I guess I was kind of hoping for this movie to be like a steak dinner, packed with flavor and a reminder of what great food can be. And instead, James Gunn took me to McDonald's, which is full of familiar flavor, not necessarily unpleasant,
Damn,
and
he hit him
marketed
with the
on
Mickey
an
D's.
established name, and said, "Come on, baby, you know I love you." He seems to be taking for granted that we're already on board with what he's doing. And I certainly wasn't against Gunn taking over.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of what he's saying, I understand what he's saying, but it's like, so the movie's just bad, in your opinion. Because if you make a movie where people are just supposed to like know things about the characters that are necessary for it to be a good movie and for you to be compelled by the characters, then that just is a bad movie.
For DC, I didn't walk in with any bias for or against his plans, but I didn't walk out convinced that the DC universe is on the right track. Even when you remove the canon elements of DC, I think that this is an unevenly plotted and paced movie that also delivers some outstanding moments and sequences, especially when the focus stays on Superman and his relationships with the people in his life, like his Earth parents, the Kents. It's just that those moments were too few and far between. Instead, we get a lot of what has been the pitfall of comic book movies in the cinematic universe era, which is tons of world building and looking to the future at the expense of right now. And I think that this was the flaw behind having Gunn both run the DC universe and act as the creative lead for this first film. He's established all of the mythology and all of the backstory in his head, but he delivered a movie that forgets to make us love it as much as he does.
Oh, no.
I find it ironic that Gunn's Superman is considered by many to be a counterpoint to Zack Snyder's Superman films, only for the two different versions to share a lot of the same flaws. Because once again, we have a Superman movie that spends too much time introducing an expanded roster of DC
He hit him with the
characters at the expense of core ones. A Superman who's largely angry and anguished, a complex plot revolving around whether Superman has too much power, and a Lex Luthor who's maybe a bit too eccentric for the character's own good. 12 years after the debut of Man of Steel, it's time to meet the new boss of the DC universe, same as the old boss. Superman is such a scattered movie that it's tough to say where it falls on my personal scale, but the question that I always ask myself is, would I be excited to watch this movie again right now? And the truth is, I wouldn't really.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to be revisiting the movie before I do my spoiler review, but as of this moment, and I do truly wish this wasn't the case, I have to say that I'm not a fan of this movie.
Shit.
Maybe that will change with time and more digestion, but I'm also not convinced that Superman is going to be the runaway success that DC is looking for. So those are my thoughts on Superman, and given that the review embargo
snap.
just lifted...
So look, I did not realize that the two reviews that I was going to react to were were going to be this negative. But that's just how the cookie crumbles, you know what I mean? And no hate to Dan Murrell or Jeremy Jahns. They're just giving their opinion. I haven't even seen the movie. Maybe I'll completely agree with them. But yeah, I did just want to look over here. I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes score is at 86%, so it does have a positive score. Carla Hayes says, the Superman franchise has a new lease on life with this engaging reboot. The superhero movie, which has Krypto as a scene-stealing dog, can get overstuffed with subplots, but it's got plenty of thrills and comedic moments. Well, I mean, they also say that it can get overstuffed, so it's not necessarily disagreeing with Dan Murrell and Jeremy Jahns. Look up at the screen. It's a great comic book movie. This new Superman installment is without a doubt one of the year's standout films, exciting, fun, and lovingly crafted by someone who deeply understands the comic book universe. Soaring with style, heart, humor, and a seriously cool dog, this fresh take on the beloved Superman is, well, quite simply super. Superman is wonderful and flawed, just like the Man of Steel himself. While it certainly captures moments of the empowering, hopeful spirit of Superman, the execution left me wondering if a little less everything might have been a lot more something truly great. I walked out entertained, yet also mixed on the film. Okay, fair enough. Superman's biggest strength rests on Clark Kent's unapologetically humane way of facing this world, no matter the challenges he may face, and on David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan's effortless chemistry. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these are positive. What's this negative one? This is Caroline Seed. This Superman claims he's driven by a desire to do good, which is a sweet and welcome message, especially compared to the darker Cavill take. But more often than not, he just feels like someone the plot happens to. Uh-oh. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'm excited to watch it on Thursday. And you at that point, you guys will receive the only review that matters, which is mine. By the way, let me know what you think so far in the comments down below. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.